Hello, everybody, and welcome to the WCN Closer Look at Conservation in Africa. Thank you very much for joining us today, whether this is your morning, your afternoon, your evening. We have folks from around the world. So yeah, thank you for joining us today. My name is Paul Thompson, and I'm going to be your host. Uh, at the Wildlife Conservation Network, what we do is protect wildlife, but we do that by supporting conservationists who ensure that people and wildlife coexist, often in a very rapidly changing world with difficult contexts. And I think what sets WCN apart is the network that we have, not just the network of conservationists that you're going to hear from today, but including the network of supporters we have around the world. And that includes you. So these closer look webinars give you access to those people and to the programs protecting wildlife all over the world. So you can think of it as a sort of a peek behind the curtain. And today's a really special opportunity. We're going to have a great conversation with wildlife experts in Kenya and Mozambique. We're going to learn about the incredible wildlife they're protecting, and then we're going to go beyond that to discuss the issues behind the conservation, to talk about the conditions their teams work in. So you're going to really get to know the people behind the animals. Now, before we dive into the session properly, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. So first of all, this webinar is being recorded and we'll post it on YouTube in the next week so additional people can participate. And this is really a chance for you to ask the questions that you have about zebras, about lions, conservation in Africa. And you can use the chat feature in Zoom here to enter in your questions. And then I'll be bringing those questions to the group later on in the session during the Q&A. So now let me introduce who we have joining us today. A fantastic group, starting with Team Zebra. So found only in northern Kenya and parts of Ethiopia, the Grevy zebra is the rarest and largest zebra species in the world. There's only about 3,000 individual Grevy zebras remaining, just 3,000. And so the Grevy Zebra Trust is the organization dedicated to helping this rare zebra rebound. And to do that, they work closely with local communities to encourage coexistence, to restore degraded land, to ensure both zebras and people have access to the vital resources they both need. And with us today is Peter Lalampaa, who is from Northern Kenya, and he's been with Grevy Zebra Trust since 2007. He's in the role now of executive director, and so this work requires him to be a natural diplomat, a conservation expert, and a organizational leader. And some of his many accolades include him being a Disney conservation hero. He was named an emerging wildlife conservation leader. And this year, he received the National Geographic Buffett Award for Leadership in Conservation, which is really exciting. He's also my boss's boss's boss in that he sits on the board of the Wildlife Conservation Network. And he's also joined with his colleague Damaris Luai, excuse me for that, who's from Samburu County in northern Kenya. Damaris is the first woman in her village to complete school, and she always felt that it was her responsibility to mentor and empower women and girls from her community. So she joined Grevy Zebra Trust in 2016 as a women's empowerment officer, and now she runs their programs that connect women's issues and conservation, changing the lives of women throughout her community. Now we're going to go down south to Mozambique, where we have the Niassa Lion Project working in the Niassa Reserve in the northern part of the country. And they're working to protect one of the largest lion populations in Africa in one of the continent's most important and spectacular wilderness areas. Their team works with local communities to find sustainable alternatives to poaching. They reduce human-wildlife conflict, and they definitely involve the communities in conservation decision-making and benefit sharing. So from that team, we have Agostinho Jorge. He's the conservation director of Niassa Lions, and he's been part of the organization since 2008. He holds a master's in leopard studies, and right now he's completing, I think he's on the verge of completing his PhD on bushmeat issues. He also went through the Emerging Wildlife Conservation Leaders Fellowship Program, And he leads Niassa's conservation monitoring and anti-poaching efforts, and he inspires their growing team through his steadfast leadership. He's joined by Andrew Mkanage, also from Mozambique, and Andrew established the first wildlife club in Niassa Reserve. And he brings his expertise as an educator, together with a deep love for conservation, to the Niassa Lion Project. He runs a range of programs, from wildlife clubs, girls clubs, a lion scholarship program, and various workshops. And he too was part of the Emerging Wildlife Conservation Leaders program. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We're going to have brief overview presentations from each group, and then we're going to open it up to a discussion. So yeah, I just want to say once again, thanks for joining us. I know it's late in Mozambique and in Kenya, but yeah, thank you very much for being here, everybody. To kick things off, we're going to hear from the Grevy Zebra team. So Peter, I'm going to hand it over to you and Damaris. And you'll have to come off mute, please.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks
for that introduction. Well, it's really a pleasure and honor to be here. As you've said, I'm Peter Lalampaa. I work for Grevy Zebra Trust. And basically, I'm going to run you through a small presentation. Some of it will just mean clicking through the, the slides, just because I was trying to make it really short, but it wasn't easy because I wanted to tell a story. And so basically, Grevy Zebra Trust, basically we work in northern part of Kenya. And I hope I'm able to shift the slides. Sophie. Yep. And so we work to conserve this magnificent species called Grevy zebra that's less known. And we work in northern Kenya, Samburu, Marsabit. And the bloodline for this ecosystem is the Ewaso Nyiro. It's the only permanent river that we have. Unfortunately, it's actually becoming seasonal nowadays. And it's an open ecosystem where grevies, other wildlife, as well as pastoral communities interact and coexist together. And so we talk of a species that's less known. Grevies, we have less than 3,000, just as Paul has pointed out. Unlike their cousins, the plain zebra that are around 500 plain zebras, and there are around 25,000 mountain zebras. And so they're less known in terms of their status in conservation. They've had a dramatic decline in numbers, from 15,000 in 1970s to about 3,000 currently that are out in the wild. For this species, what has happened with this species? First of all, the biggest threat in 1970s, 1980s was they were being hunted for their skin. But thanks God, that threat has been eliminated. And so the biggest threat that is facing this species is habitat loss, which is linked to overgrazing. Pastoral communities that used to move around and that gave land enough time to recover are becoming sedentary. They are settling closer to shopping centers, closer to schools, closer to social amenities that they need. And so they end up degrading the land. And so perennial grasses have disappeared in the landscape. And this actually not just affects the grevies, but it also affects the pastoral communities that share the space with the grevies. And so we are talking of a very magnificent species. Looking at their ears, so endearing. It's a very, beautiful species that I couldn't imagine Samburu without this species. And I can't imagine losing this species in this landscape. And so we were formed as an organization in 2007 to work with the local communities to understand exactly what's happening with this species and try to work with the local communities to conserve this species. 90% of our team, some of them that you see in this picture, are from this community. So there are people who really share their resources space with the species. And, these are pastoral communities. The same resources that grevies depend on are the same resources that their livestock, the cattle, the sheep and goat depend on. And so we are talking of a species that's very closely linked with the pastoral way of life of these particular communities. And so what are we doing as Grevy Zebra Trust to conserve these species? Our first goal is working to make sure that the Grevies survive at times of adversity when there's hard drought. And so the first thing that we do is that we ensure that when there's no pasture because of drought, when there's no pasture because of climate change, we work by making sure that we bring grass from southern Kenya and place them on the ways that the Grevies used to go to water. It's a very expensive undertaking, and sometimes it takes a team working around the clock to make sure that the Grevies are able to supplement their feed. And so we have learned over time, this is a better way to do this. And so because of our team, we place the hay in a line. And because other also species also are going through the same stress, they end up also benefiting. As you can see from that picture, you can see oryx are also coming to join the Grevies in order to have the only meal that we were putting out during the time of stress. Sometimes it calls for interventions such as having a vet working around the clock, because some of the individuals really go through stress, they lose their body conditions. And so because of that, we have a veterinary unit that work around the clock to respond to emergencies of injuries, emergencies of the individuals that have lost their energy. And so sometimes it was the first time we were seeing Grevies being put under drips to gain energy. And also, as we work towards survival for Grevies in terms of providing for grazing, we also work for providing water, because sometimes when the drought is really biting, the water table really is so deep. And so Grevies cannot really dig for water. And so we have a team of volunteers working around the clock to dig for shallow wells and ensure that the Grevies have water. And this is just an instance after they have dug the shallow wells. We put out cameras to monitor, to make sure that these interventions are leading to Grevy zebra having access to water. And this is one of the camera traps that we set out, and it was showing Grevies coming in large numbers. And it's not just Grevies, but so many other wildlife species were also benefiting from this. And so also as land degradation happened, sometimes they create deep gullies. And I want to share a story of these two boys who went out herding livestock, and they found a Grevy zebra fall that had fallen on the gully. And it couldn't get out, but they came out, met our team, and gave the news that there's a fall that had fallen into a deep gully. These are just what we see on a daily basis because of land degradation, because of overgrazing. We had to set out a team of vets together with our team to go and rescue this fall. And so it took effort of getting the fall from the deep gullies and finding the mother and urinating with the mother. These are just some of the success stories from working with the local communities in this landscape. As we do that, these are short-term measures, very expensive. It's not easy to do it continuously. And so for us, our second goal is working on bringing back land health, and that's through regenerative rangeland goal. And so for this goal, it involves engaging the local communities, engaging the women, engaging the elders, engaging the Morans. And sometimes it takes the effort of women digging half-moon structures, we call it semicircular bands, to control runoff, soil runoff, and to ensure that we capture moisture that enables the grass to come back. And these are women working around the clock. It's not easy. It's communities that have never known farming, now learning to be grass farmers. And after they have done that work, we also monitor this area to ensure that we are able to look at how do these areas respond. Looking at this small shrub here with a red circle around it, this is just after they have dug the semicircular bands. And once it rains, immediately it rains, these are the level of response that we're seeing. It creates these small islands of areas where a lot of grass really has grown. And you can see the small bush here. circled in red again. And this is just after the first rain. They also create enclosures where they pilot this practice. And as you can see from this tall tree that's circled here, this is before the interventions. And this is after the intervention. You can see that the area is already covered with grass. And that's what we want within the whole landscape. It has created some highlands of areas that you can see where perennial grasses have disappeared, and we are seeing perennial grasses coming back. And so that's one social group that we work with very closely in terms of voluntary restoration. The second other group is working with the warriors. And because the warriors are the people who walk around with their livestock, with their cattle in search of pasture, we engage them in terms of regenerative grazing, where we plan the grazing in this landscape. And our main goal is making sure that we have a landscape that has perennial grasses, that the livestock can be able to move around as they search for pasture, but also ensure that we use livestock as a tool to regenerate the rangeland. And these are areas that we have done plant grazing with the warriors, with the elders, with the women. We've had an instance where Grevies have spent more than 4 months in the same landscape where they could not have had grass before. It also means understanding Grevies. So as we do rangeland restoration, as we do plant grazing in this landscape, we also monitor Grevies to understand how they use this landscape. And so we have a team of warriors, a team of Greve Zebra ambassadors, and a team of scouts who are mostly women, monitoring the movement of Grevies within this landscape. And from their data, it enables us to come up with intervention mechanism that informs the government. So they use spatial monitoring tool called SMART to collect data. And from some of the work that they were able to do, we were able to reroute our oil pipeline that could have cut across Greve Zebra breeding hotspot area. Our fourth goal is creating value for Grevies. And so I am going to let my colleague, Damaris, take you through that goal where we are connecting the species with the community. So karibu, Damaris.
Thank you so much, Peter, for such a great presentation. My name is Damaris, and I'm happy to be part of this presentation, to hear my voice on my passion for Grevies and the passion of my people for Grevies. Yes, as Peter said earlier, you can't imagine the communities without Grevy. It is true. The communities cannot imagine the land without Grevies. What a passion, what a love we have for the species because of their beauty, because of what we have existed with them, and they're harmless and they exist with our livestock. You have seen the slides of women struggling, just to regenerate the land. Just imagine such women without basic needs like even a reusable sanitary pad or just a healthier way to manage their menstrual health. And that led to the Women Project, where women sew reusable pads so that they tied to conservation of Grevies, the striped pads, so that they can explain the need to conserve Grevies. At the same time, they also quench their need to have the basic need of a reusable pad. That is the reason how we connect the economic support of women and also the conservation of Grevy. They all go together, and this is how we as Greve Zebra put this together to make sure that the animal benefit and also the people benefit from it is conservation. Yeah, and at the same time, we take the pads to the school girls, because also, as you see the slide here, these girls are happy because they received a pack of a reusable sanitary pad that is striped, and it is just to communicate, to give them knowledge about this incredible species that is, that is endangered. So it comes with knowledge. At the same time, this girl can stay in school, cannot miss in school during her periods. And that is the meaning of this. Then when we go to this school,
We're having a slight technological glitch. It looks like Damaris's connection is a little bit slow, but hopefully she'll come back.
Maybe I can just fill in for Damaris in
That'd be
terms
great,
of
Peter, if you could keep going.
yeah, in terms of what she wanted to share there.
Get them.
You know, as we
Students.
go out to Damaris, maybe I can just take it over from there.
Yeah, go for it.
So as we go to these schools and provide the reusable sanitary towel, we realize that some of the kids really come from very humble background. And some of them will tell us that they cannot go beyond the primary level to be able to join the O levels. And so we get some of the girls from these primary schools that we've engaged during the awareness in terms of grave zebra conservation, and we take them through a scholarship program. And I just want to share a good example of, a girl on your far right that you can see. She's called Nepe, and her dream was to become a pilot. We went with her, we did the school outreach. She was coming from a humble background. And so we had to take her through an O level, and she joined going for piloting classes. And now she's becoming the first lady coming from Northern Kenya who is going through piloting in order to come back and give back to our community. And she goes back to give to our community by talking to the rest of the girls and creating this dream that you can be what you want to be, just because she had a dream to be a pilot, and we are taking her through that process of, piloting lessons. And so this is connecting the species with the community, because at the end of the day, the communities are the people who share their space, their resources with the species. And so our fifth goal is looking at the landscape level in terms of how the Grevies use the landscape. And as development comes, whether it's the road network, whether it's the oil pipeline, we realize that it's going to curtail the movement of the species. And so our fifth goal is working towards connecting the landscape to ensure that the Grevies, as well as pastoral communities, move from one area to another. And for this goal, we work very closely with the government, because Northern Kenya is being planned for a flagship program called the LAPSET, where they're connecting from Lamu all the way to Juba and all the way to Moyale, creating the LAPSET corridor for movement of goods and services. And so we're saying, how do we make sure that this corridor for movement of goods does not curtail the movement of Grevies as well as the pastoral community? And we've already felt the impact of this development. A number of species being knocked by speeding vehicles by the A2 road. And this is just an example of so many wildlife that have been knocked by this road, the A2 road that connects Moyale to Isiolo. And so we work very closely with the government in order to inform them on the impact of this road, but also to make sure that they do this in the planning stage, they're able to take care of the needs of wildlife as well as the pastoral community movement. And so it's all about different interventions. We are not suggesting one particular solution will solve it. And so we are thinking of underpasses, overpasses, and just making sure that wildlife, because different wildlife have different response to either going over the road or going under the road. And so we're looking at different methods that we can be able to facilitate this. And so I just wanted to share also this, that we have clear corridors of movement for Grevies, clear corridors of movement for wildlife, clear corridors for movement of livestock. And so we want to make sure that this is achieved now and into the future. And this is just a corridor where Grevies were using, going through Lejo as they go towards the A2 road, going for search of pasture and water across the same A2 road that we were talking about. Our dream is to make sure that we increase the grave zebra numbers in this landscape and ensure that also, and ensure that, the species have the freedom to move in this landscape and survive in now and into the future. And so with that, I'm going to hand over to our colleagues from Niassa Lion to talk about their effort in conservation in Mozambique. So over to you, my colleagues.
Thank you, Peter and Damaris, for the amazing work you are doing in Kenya. Once again, hello, everyone. We are very happy to have you here today. We are very thankful because your presence in this room tells us that you have got a big love for wildlife. We know some of you have already embarked with us in this journey of protecting lions and other large carnivores in Niassa and other places in Africa. And I'm sure you have also joined this journey to protect Grevy zebras in Kenya. And I hope we may have some of you joining us in this journey today. Most of you already know us. We are Niassa Lion Project, working in Niassa Special Reserve as Niassa Carnivore Project to conserve large carnivores and their prey, promoting consistency and shared respect for people, their culture, wildlife, and the environment. Sorry, I can't see let's see where to change the slide here. Okay.
Did you find it? It's on the bottom left corner.
Yes, but it's like it's hiding. It's being hidden by the.
There.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. So we work in northern Mozambique, close to Tanzania, in a protected area with 42,000 square kilometers. There is an estimated number of between 800 to 1,000 lions, 300 to 350 African wild dogs, approximately 4,000 spotted hyenas, and a considerable number of leopards. Lions are facing big threats in Niassa Reserve, but also in Africa as well, due to the illegal trade for their bones. The map here on the left, the African map, will tell you why we need a big attention to lions. As historically, there were 50,000 lions in Africa, but now we are talking of approximately 24,000 lions. So we have hope, as we believe that the future of these carnivores and lions specifically lies in your hands, our hands, and the hands of more than 60,000 people who share space with these carnivores. And Niassa Special Reserve, it's a spectacular place where maybe most of you would love to visit. This is one of the places where there's large concentrations of lions. For us, all single species matter when it comes to conservation, because we do understand that lions and other large carnivores cannot stand by themselves. So other species matters to us as we try to protect lions. So I'll hand over to Agostinho to go on with the presentation.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining us in this amazing conversation between these two projects. So I'm Agostinho Jorge, the Conservation Director at the Niassa Lion Project. Lions are facing big threats in Africa. They were once widely distributed, but unfortunately their range has reduced dramatically. And currently lions are facing threats related to bushmeat snaring, but also related to the illegal wildlife trades. So part of we not only try to stop the loss, addressing the threats, but we also work with communities to reduce the cost of coexistence, because we know that living with the lions can be challenging. But there is indigenous knowledge that communities have been practiced for millennia, and what we try to do as a project is to remind people about this practice. As you can see in this picture, we have these sanjas, which are these houses where people sleep in the mashamba, which help reducing the level of conflict. But apart from reducing the cost of living with lions, we also, next slide, we feel that it's important to unlock value of the lions. Like Peter said in his presentation, it's important to that communities see the value of Grevy zebra, and that is also true for lions. So it's important that we provide communities with alternatives, alternative livelihoods that are related to the lion. In other words, that the lion can generate a legal conservation economy that can contribute to the coexistence. Next. And coexistence is not always easy. Coexistence can be challenging. As you can see in the picture that my colleague will show, we have a wild dog there with people. So what we are seeing in this picture is something that has been happening for millennia, and we are not doing anything different rather than just trying to ensure that these communities keep these behaviors that basically have been promoting this relationship. But it's not a peaceful thing. Coexistence can be challenging. Coexistence is something that needs to be worked day by day. Coexistence it needs to be intentional in order to work for both people and animals. And so, without taking too much of time, I will stop here so that we can have enough time for our conversation. But we would like to thank WCN for give us this opportunity to interact with these amazing people, and also all people that have been supporting our work, because we don't work alone, and we believe that success cannot be achieved alone. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. That was a fantastic overview of the work that you're doing. Really important work. And I think it highlights how critical putting that community engagement and that coexistence work at the center of your wildlife work. Damaris, I'm sorry we lost you during the middle of your portion. So I think I'm going to open up the first question to you. You once told me that people challenges are very similar to the same challenges that wildlife face, whether it's surviving in drought conditions, looking for water, looking for food to feed your children. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how you see that connection between the same challenges that people and wildlife face?
Yeah, so people coexist with grave zebra, the communities, and when the communities do not have water, like for example the drought time, it is the same problem with the gravies. So the community look at the gravies as just the way they see their livestock. So when during the drought, the cows die, even the gravies die, the people suffer. So when these challenges come, they look at the same challenges as the way the wildlife also suffer. So that is how it's all connected. So conservation of grave zebra is, again, looking at the people's problem. Like during the one of the recent droughts, when we were feeding the grave zebra, cows were dying and the communities did not have food. So we ended up providing forage for people because the communities were suffering at the same time. And really the communities, after when it rained, it really meant a lot to us because the same people came like, okay, if it were not you, we could have probably died out of the starvation because we didn't have anything to eat. So you can imagine we were thinking about fundraising for feeding Grevy for hay and all that. Then at the same time, we could not ignore the communities because the small kids were dying, the old people were dying at the same time. So this conservation of Grevy and livelihood, they're inseparable. We cannot separate. Like for the women, we ended up making pads because our scouts, when they go out looking for Grevies, they don't have a better way, to take care of the menstrual health. So we ended up starting a program to support women. And the program itself supports conservation of grave zebra because of the striped pads. And at the same time, we ended keeping girls in school from the same communities. So this is all intertwined together. Conservation and livelihood of the people is inseparable. And this makes conservation so nice, and so it is life. It is so, you cannot imagine. Conservation is everything now. We are taking care of everything. People get sick, they use the same vehicles. I had this story whereby a woman gave birth just around our camp, and there was no ambulance, so I had to accompany the woman to the hospital. I am not a midwife, but because I'm a conservationist, I ended up helping the woman. And were it not for conservation, maybe the lady could have died and the baby. So look at that picture, what conservation really means. It is not just about wildlife. It is about people's life. It's about women and children. It's about the old people. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Agostinho, what about in Niassa? How do you go about building trust with people? People who maybe are starting in a position where they're against conservation or against wildlife, but the success of the programs you have really hinge on developing that long-term trust. So how do you guys cultivate that?
Yeah, thanks, Paul, for that question. So I will steal some of the words from Damaris. I think she mentioned something which is really critical, like when the graves suffer, people also suffer. And I think that's also true for lions in Niassa. Basically, this connection is also present. And we very soon realized that conservation is not just about lions, like the grave zebra colleagues have shown here, that you have to address it holistically. So we have to work across many different strands to ensure that we can work with the communities, support the communities along their various needs. That means providing them with various types of alternatives so that we can ensure that people's needs are met. And we believe that once people's needs are met, that we will have happy people. And once we have happy people, we go again to the Damaris story, happy people, happy animals. So I think lions know how to look after themselves. So I think that if we have people coexisting, people sharing with land with lions happily, I think that's basically that is I think that's the biggest conservation success for us. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Agostinho. I'm going to pull a couple questions from the audience. So those of you who are watching, please, if you have additional questions, use the chat feature and we'll monitor that. Peter, so there's two questions in here that I'm going to combine into one. So one is a question from Christopher about the habitat loss and degradation that you're seeing and whether that's a result of cattle farming in the area. And then combined with that, I know you talked about the digging of the half moon sort of areas for water collection. And Kendall was asking to hear more about that and whether you do that in partnership with a group called Just Dig It, who does something similar. So maybe you can talk about land restoration there.
Thanks, and apology for that. Basically, I will say that just to answer your question, the whole idea of land degradation, we tend to blame livestock, but actually it's the way we manage our livestock that leads to land degradation. When we look at nature, we can learn a lot from nature. And that's the kind of lesson we're trying to pass to the pastoral communities in northern Kenya. Like we look at the migration of the wildebeest. It's one of the wildest of the world, but they do migrate from Serengeti to Masai Mara, and the other way around also. They migrate from Masai Mara to Serengeti, and they are in thousands and thousands. But what happens when these wildebeest migrate from Masai Mara to Serengeti? They give Masai Mara a recovery period. And that's also true when they migrate from Serengeti to Masai Mara. And so pastoral communities that used to migrate from one area to another and allowed land recovery time are no longer that mobile. They are more sedentary now around shopping centers, closer to schools, closer to social amenities that are very critical for these communities. And so we're saying it's not just livestock that's a problem. It's the way we manage our livestock that's a problem. And that's why we end up losing our perennial grasses. And from the kind of work we've done with the community conservancies in northern Kenya, we've mimicked nature and actually shown the community that you can bring back land health by just moving your livestock to the right place at the right time for the right reason. And because of that, some of the areas that we couldn't see Grevies spending time there, we're seeing around 600 Grevies spending more than 4 months in a small, tiny area that's less than 1,000 hectares. And compared to the bigger, larger landscape of Samburu, it means even if we wanted to go back to having more than 15,000 Grevies that we had in 1970s, we can actually go back to having that. If only we manage our livestock in a way that it helps to regenerate the rangeland. And so that's one thing that I really wanted to point out, that actually there's hope. And there's hope once communities learn these skills that enables you to make sure that land has recovery period. In terms of the same circular, the half-moon structures, we learned this through Just Dig It. And so we had to take some of the community members to Cook Ranch for them to learn what Just Dig It did. And we also brought some of the technicians from Just Dig It to come and train communities in northern Kenya. And some of the people that were trained are now becoming the people training those communities in northern Kenya. But we still work hand in hand with so many partners. It's not just Grevy Zebra Trust alone. There are so many partners who are putting a lot of effort on this, including Northern Rangeland Trust, Grevy Zebra Trust, the Niassa Lion, name it. All the conservation organizations are focusing on learning these new skills because we've seen actually it can bring immediate results. But that's just to inspire the communities to do something about their land, because you can do within a small area. The bigger plan is to make sure that these small areas that have really regenerated connect to the larger landscape of plant grazing.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. So you talk about some of the groups that you work with collaboratively.
Yeah.
And I think one of the successes that both of your organizations share is that you're very collaborative. And I'm seeing that happening more and more in conservation, which is a source of hope for me, is that people aren't just working on their species in a silo, but they're really working sort of with other organizations. And so I'm curious to hear, maybe Agostinho, I'll ask you first, but how do you see where Niassa Lion Project is similar to some of the work that the Grevy Zebra Trust is doing? And then how do you see where you guys are different? And are you able to learn from each other? And what sort of ways have you guys been able to share information or do that learning through the WCN network?
Yeah, thank you. I think we share a lot of similarities. From Peter's presentation, Peter and Damaris' presentation, it was very clear that first, I think we are often dealing with a lot of unintended consequences from the development projects, being it the infrastructure development that negatively impact on wildlife, or being it power lines that then leave behind the electrical cables that then become a serious problem for wildlife, illegal killing through snaring. And I think we also very much focused on change. I think both projects are about giving people voice, like Peter said, the sort of the girl that dreamed to become the first pilot and show that it was possible. I think telling these little stories in these communities have huge impact. So that's how you can actually create change. And I think we are also similar because we are working in a very complex systems. You could see from Greve Zebra's presentation that they are not just, it's not just about focused on Greve Zebra. So there is an interconnection. So there is Greve Zebra, there is people, there is livestock, and equally importantly, there is culture. So it's reaffirming these cultural values. It's about basically these traditions that can contribute to promote coexistence. I think that's basically what, I mean, how that's another similarity. We are slightly different because we in a country where people speak Portuguese. And we work on carnivores, which sometimes eat zebras. But I think we are similar because we are not looking just at the single species. We are looking at the whole ecosystem, and we are also working on basically large landscape. Maybe I will jump. I will maybe take one of the questions. I saw one question there related to prides in Niassa. How many prides of lions are in Niassa, which basically links well with one of the points that you mentioned, Paul, which is about collaboration. So we have about 19 prides of 19 prides of lions in Niassa that are currently monitored, which count for about a total of sorry, we have 19 prides, which account to 96 lions. And the good news is that only last year we were able to count at least 26 um, lions that were born through this program. This is an amazing program which involves a huge collaboration across 28,000 square kilometers, 11 concessions, which is something amazing that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise, just alone. So we strongly believe that collaboration is the way to go through. We believe that as we collaborate, we can create a lot more impact. And that's what we are doing, both inside Niassa Special Reserve, and we are also collaborating outside Niassa Special Reserve, increasing our impact on wildlife conservation and promoting more coexistence.
Paul, sometimes I joke that if I can jump in, sometimes I joke like I'm creating food for the lions. And so sometimes I tell Jeneria and Agostinho that I will write a paycheck for them so that I can continue creating food for the lions. And so that means that we just need to really work together, whether you're working on carnivores, whether you're working on herbivores, because the ecosystem can only thrive and can only be stable if we have collaboration between different players that are working in conserving different species. And so to me, collaboration is key. And thanks to WCN and the supporters for WCN, we've been able to learn from each other. We've been able to learn from what people working on carnivores are doing with the communities. We've been able to learn from those who are doing the infrastructure work, even those that are working in infrastructure work in California. We're learning a lot from Neil and the team that's really looking at landscape connectivity. And so to me, collaboration is key to our success.
Great. And something yeah, Agostinho, go on.
Sorry, I wanted to maybe ask Andrew to share about, I mean, in line of collaboration, we're discussing about a few, I mean, we have some visitors here, and yeah, we're discussing in our education WhatsApp group about something, but maybe, I mean, Andrew had some great comments, and I couldn't, I couldn't contain myself. So I think it's something really cool to share here.
Thanks, Agostinho. Sorry, I lost internet, and I hope you can hear me well. Yes, as you talk of collaboration, that's the key thing we can do if you want to make a difference on this planet. Currently, we have a team from Niassa Lion, Kenya, visiting us. We'll be sharing experiences on how we do education, how they do environmental education in Kenya, and how we do environmental education here in Niassa, challenges, successes, and which we feel like it will boost our education team in Niassa. And besides other organizations, but also have collaborations, or what we normally call it partners, with communities here in the reserve. From this partnership and collaboration, we can see now a big tendency to carnivores. One example is recently we got a message. One of our colleagues went to one of the villages where people, they normally report when they see carnivores because they are threatened and they want someone to come and chase carnivores away. But now they can't report because of one of the programs we started, which is camera trap program that brings benefits to the communities. And the deal is that each and every picture that the camera capture, they get a point, and the point are converted into money. So they get more points when it's an carnivore. Now, what's happening now? They don't want to report to us that they are at carnivores around their villages because they feel like we'll go there and we'll send a team of scouts there and they'll chase lions and other carnivores away, and they won't have points. Now, what they want is how we just need to teach them how they can live safely with large carnivores in the area. So this is all about collaboration. This is all about communication at lower level in the communities, but in higher level with other organizations, as Peter was just saying here.
Thank you, Andrew. So I'm looking at the clock and I'm getting sad because we only have a couple minutes left. There's some great questions in the chat about how people can help and what the biggest sort of challenges your organizations are facing going forward. So maybe to close, we can find out, there's especially a number of comments from our audience that are really interested, Damaris, in your work and your women's programs. So maybe Grevy Zebra guys, you can tell us a little bit about kind of what can people who are halfway around the world from Kenya, how can folks help?
Just as I throw to Damaris, I think for us as Grevy Zebra Trust, really, whatever donation you give to Grevy Zebra Trust through WCN really makes a great difference. Sometimes, you know, a $50 note can make us have gas that will enable us reach to the communities, engage them in terms of restoration work, but also just making sure that we are able to reach out to these women who are doing amazing work, whether it's in restoration, whether it's producing reusable sanitary towels, whether it's taking a kid through a scholarship program. It makes a difference because we are changing the community, and the community will end up, you know, appreciating the fact that they are benefiting from having species within their landscape. And so to us, one is donation, obviously, is a way that you can support Grevy Zebra Trust to meet its goal and its mission of increasing and conserving the Grevy zebra in northern Kenya. But also talk to a friend. Talk about this magnificent species that not so many people know about. Share a story about these women who are doing an amazing work. And the more people get to know, you know, what we're doing, the more there's hope to make sure that we are not just conserving the Grevy's alone, but we are conserving the species that are out in the wild. And so that's what that's the call that I would maybe want to share.
Thanks, Peter. Damaris, any closing thoughts from you? Can you come off mute?
Sorry. So my kids were making noise, so I had to put it off on mute. Okay. So Peter has put it so well, and mine is just say thank you so much, WCN, for holding our hand. So please, those who like to support us, connect to WCN. We owe you really a lot, and you motivate us to work hard every day because we know we are friends. You connect us to friends. So mine is just to thank everyone who found time here, and especially you know, big appreciation goes to WCN for always thinking of us. And this is also where we are, all the communities and even the students. Just imagine a girl being a pilot from the far north of Kenya, maybe the first one. So this is, it is never small. Too little is never too little if we can use it to conserve wildlife and also change the livelihood of people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Damaris. In the interest of time, just maybe one of you from Niassa can say some closing remarks. Andrew, would you like to go?
Thank you, WCN, and thank you. And I would like to thank all the participants, all the folks in this room. We are very grateful. The first support you have shown to us is coming to this webinar and hearing what we are doing. That's a big support because that gives us hope that there are people out there who are appreciating the work we are doing in the ground. And the other support you can do for us is to come and visit Niassa Special Reserve because you have eco-tourism camp that generate funds for the community. So if you do so, you will be supporting our project, but so you'll be supporting the communities who work in partner with. And every other donation you can do for us, we have got a website, we have got a Facebook page, Niassa Lion Project. You'll find all the information and everything we do is posted there. So if you want to reach us, just go there, Niassa Lion Project, and we can still connect with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Agostinho, do you have anything short to say? I want to give you a chance to speak.
No, I think it's basically to thank everyone for keep supporting us, and I think without repeating what everyone has already said that I think conservation is no longer just biology. I think we are just here on the ground, but what you do is also conservation, supporting us. So I think it's about I will encourage you to use more your talents to support conservation, whether you are an artist, whether you are a doctor. I think there is plenty room for different people. We need help. Lions need help. Women need help. And thank you very much for everything you have been doing so far for lions, grave zebras, and many other species that are important for this ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for staying up late on a Friday evening to join us today. Every time I speak with you all, I learn so much. And thanks to everybody for tuning in today. Please reach out to WCN if you want to help these organizations, and we'll happily put you in touch directly with our speakers today. Join us for our